You have to be on very good behavior to get such a thing like this. Okay? Hold on. You have to behave well.
Did you earn it?
I know, but what did you do for it? Have you been a good girl? Okay, I'll get it for you.
The spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, which is, by the way, Christendom. Christians, our sacrifice, our toil, our vision, the outgrowth of the scriptures gave us Western civilization. And this is where I think is a great rallying cry. Doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're black or white. Everybody, if you are Christian and Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, these two threats are combining forces to come after us. And it's time that the church stands and rises up against it.
Yep. Good evening, guys, and welcome on this September 10th, 2025. Indeed, a solemn day, a sorrowful day for so many of us. Those of us who, of course, believe in the sanctity of life. The passing of Charlie Kirk, assassinated on a college campus, doing what he did best, presenting truth and debating the ideas. A happy warrior. And yet he was gunned down today. What seemed to be an absolute professional hit. We've been on the air today from 1 o'clock for our normal broadcast of Worldview Radio, which is also TV on our 74 stations. And in that broadcast at about 1:30 Central, I was told in my earpiece that Charlie Kirk had been shot. Couldn't even imagine. Was it shot like walking on the street? But no. We found out in a matter of seconds because the videos were everywhere. Shot in front of 3,000 people, according to the governor of Utah. It was a sniper shot. We began covering it and we broadcast and did not leave the news desk until an hour ago, 6 Central. 5 hours of uninterrupted programming. We're going to be joined tonight by former Congressman Jason Lewis. Then we're going to be joined by some of our panel to regather together and talk about Charlie, his work, his life, his mission, his worldview, his passion, his influence, but also what it says about our country, where we're going as a country, as a nation. Members of Congress today couldn't even seem to agree that it's okay to have a verbal prayer on the House floor. The most they could do is have a moment of silence. Can a nation stay together when we as a people can't even agree that it's appropriate to have a verbal prayer for a family who just lost their son, a wife who just lost her husband, 2 small children who just lost their dad? And there are people in the House of Representatives that did not want to have a verbal prayer. There are people that are celebrating tonight openly on social media the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And many of these people would be just as happy if all conservative spokespeople, hosts, talk show hosts, you as a conservative were also eliminated. When Logan told me in my ear while we were on the air live that Charlie Kirk, breaking news, Charlie Kirk has been shot, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't. This is something we have been expecting. Not necessarily Charlie, but we have been talking about this on this broadcast, and particularly television, radio, I should say, for years. Here's a screenshot before we go to Jason Lewis. This is from back in 2018. 2018. It was my radio show. And the description, Antifa is now calling for ambushing and assassinating people on the right. Brannon predicted a few years ago that communists would begin to call for violence and elimination of known conservatives. So this is something that we repeated in 2018, but we were saying it for some time. We even had shown you, and Trevor Loudon will join me later tonight. For the last few years, Trevor Loudon and I have shown this document. You guys remember seeing this? This is a military document. Unrestricted warfare. Look at this one here. The third from the bottom, assassination. Assassination. They're talking about how to bring down a country and have revolution. As you get closer to the top, increased political violence, terror, sabotage. The governor of Utah tonight expressed in the press conference we carried live that they're not sure they have the actual shooter in custody. We did show today footage of someone up on a roof moving, but we don't know who the shooter is. David Pine will be with us in a minute. And David Pine texted me today while I was on the air saying that my friend, I know this guy. I know this guy that's been arrested. Let me tell you exactly what he said, his exact tweet to, or text to me. I'm friends with the suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting. He texted me that while I'm live on the air. Like, what? Turned out that was the guy who was also being taken off, but that's not him. I don't know what that's all about, but it wasn't him. He's not the shooter. There are more questions tonight than there are answers. Even when we posted, Logan, you want to show it? What was posted on our Facebook today? We put up a tribute to Kirk on our Facebook page. And there's a guy that's been putting out comments on our Facebook page now for about 2 months. Calls himself the Muslim Retribution. He's been putting on our Facebook page for 2 months now. The only good conservative is a dead one. He did it again today when we posted about Charlie Kirk and then said humanity won today. Joining me now is former congressman and frequent guest host of the Rush Limbaugh Show and a national talk show host in his own right, syndicated, Jason Lewis. Jason, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight before we go to our esteemed panel. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, tough night, Brannon. I think as you just intimated, the culprits in all of this, the people responsible for all of this, cannot be narrowed down to one shooter today. There are many more people in the United States of America in prominent positions, whether they be political, institutional, or in the media, that right now are busy wiping blood off their hands. And the fundamental angst that's driving through young people throughout this country, and I've talked to several of them tonight who are in tears, obviously, over Charlie, who, by the way, was the first non-TV superstar in the political era. If you talk about the new digital age, of which you're pioneering, but Charlie never had a program on broadcast TV. He never had a program on cable that I can remember, unless it was a spare weekend one here or there. He rose from the digital age in podcasts and all of the videos and organizing on campus, and became a social media phenomenon that hit young people especially hard, or it certainly moved them in a way that maybe other traditional hosts like me didn't do. And that's why it was so profound today to lose somebody. But I will tell you, there are a lot more people responsible for this act of not just a political assassination. This was an act of domestic terrorism. And there are a lot of people complicit in this. And the reason that we have all the angst rifling through all these young people I talk about is because they see what's right in front of all of us, but the adults are too busy making certain they're viable in the political world to see. And that is, as of right now, and I would argue maybe even the last 8 years, there's no justice in America. At best, there's 2 tiers, 3 tiers of justice. But there is no justice. Well, we get our rambling manifestos. We get another guy, another silhouette on a roof. We get a young woman in Charlotte, North Carolina on a dangerous light rail line snuffed out. And what do? We get people mocking her. That's not justice. And that's what's driving people crazy and driving them to tears tonight. We live in a country that there's no justice. If you're the wrong side, if you're a white Christian, certainly. In fact, there's instigators. Just last night, CNN and their panel, Vance Jones, who did he tear into? Charlie Kirk. Why? Why did Vance tear into Charlie Kirk? Because he was a white guy with a virus in his head, as he had previously said about white people? No, because he was lamenting the fact that this young girl in Charlotte had her life snuffed out at a young age, just like 24 hours later, Charlie Kirk would. Till we hold everyone responsible, this isn't going to stop. And that's what's really sad in America tonight.
It's not going to stop. And we have people that are in the conservative world, the broadcast world. Some of them are openly stating tonight they thought it was foolish for people to say, well, you shouldn't be going to these political events. They're too dangerous. You shouldn't go. She said, I thought they were cowards. She says, now I understand.
Right. Here's part of the problem. Obviously, you have people that are deranged, possessed by Satan, who are committed communists, whatever their rationale is. We've got 35% of the country that is not salvageable. They are dedicated to overthrowing the precepts upon which Western civilization was founded. But then we've got Republicans who still can't muster the outrage tonight, other than to say there's never an excuse for political violence. Duh. That's what Gavin Newsom said. That's what they all say. We've got too many rooftop shooters from mysterious circumstances with a social media trail who are what? Proficient with a .308 sniper rifle? Are you kidding me? We've got to get answers in this country, and then we've got to have swift and certain justice so that America can feel, once again, we're under the rule of law and we're not at civil war. That's really what the bottom line is here. And maybe a few people are raising that flag. I hope you are. I hope your guests are. But I certainly am.
We have.
A lot of people that have been citing this for quite some time, and it's time they be held to account.
I agree. And we broadcast today for 5 hours. I was on the air when it happened. And I stayed at the desk for 5 hours till 6 o'clock Central, back with you. And the other guests will be joining us again. And all of us have been pretty well saying the same thing, that we don't have a lot of answers and we're tired of it. Whether it's Butler, right, July 13th, which nobody wants to talk about anymore. Hey, let's go back to the Vegas shooting where all these Americans were killed at a concert down below. You know,
How about the assassin in Minnesota that took out Democrats?
Yep.
But nobody can figure out how an unemployed guy had loads of cash, a brand new SUV, and 2 homes. I mean, nothing of this stuff adds up. And this today is certainly disturbing when you consider it had to be a high-powered sniper rifle.
Oh, yeah.
A small caliber handgun wouldn't have done the damage to Charlie that it did. And somebody with a pretty good shot, I'm sure it was just some social media crazy guy, right? I mean,
Right.
At some point, there's something much more sinister at work here. As you point out, we don't have the answer on Butler. And I'll tell you something else. This has been going on for 8 years since I was in Congress. You might remember when you mentioned Antifa, but in the 115th, the first time Trump got in there, I was in there with him, and we got routine threats into our office. I had people on my front lawn. Our town halls were crashed. My colleagues were run off the road, and Steve Scalise was shot. Now, this is going on for 8 years, and it's in the Trump era. Now, the other side says, oh, it's because Donald Trump's raised the rhetoric, as the asinine governor of Illinois said today. But why is it that the Trump himself or conservatives are the targets then? So you've got a situation where people's minds are not going down some conspiratorial rabbit hole. They're looking at the evidence. They're looking at what's in front of them and going, this looks like an orchestrated conspiracy, one after another. Now, I'm not even saying it is, but I'm not criticizing anybody who wonders, because we're not getting answers. And the same old crap happened today with a silhouette on a rooftop. What, we don't check rooftops anymore at these gatherings? It's astounding to me.
Well, it is. And
tragic, because the single biggest tragedy today, is not Charlie Kirk's prowess. It is that the leader and the father, the partner of a young family is gone.
Yep.
That's the tragedy. 31 years old, for the love of all things sacred.
Yep. And that, of course, has been what we've all been talking about off camera, which is his family. You know,
Right.
He's in a better place. He had a very strong faith. He was obviously a very committed Christian. He just, Logan and I were talking after doing 5 hours of straight television, and we haven't had a chance to talk other than through, communicating on producing the show live. Right. And we started talking about, do you think he knew he got hit? And I said, I don't think he knew he got hit. Logan's like, you could see his body go up. I said, can you imagine the force he was hit with? I said, he was out. It was lights out, and he just stepped right into glory. And so he's in a far better place than we are. But what is left behind are 2 children and a wife and a video. My wife said, I can't see the video anymore. We've played it today. We're going to try not to play it tonight. But my wife said, I can't see that. And yet I said, that video will never be erased. That is a modern day President Kennedy video, and that his children one day are going to stumble upon.
Well, I mean, look, if it were up to legacy media, the video wouldn't have come out. The mayor of Charlotte thanked the members of the press who dutifully followed her lead and buried the video on light rail. You've got people that are actively encouraging the most insane people in this country to take rash actions. And when they do, or they do it because they've been told all white people are bad, especially white Christians, ad nauseum, when they do, they have excuses made for them. It's a suspect that needs the sympathy. It's a suspect who is really weak, and he's the guy we ought to feel sorry for. There are just a lot of really sick or evil people. I'm not certain which it is, but they run our institutions, and that's what's terrifying.
Oh, wow. What do you make, before we bring on our esteemed panel? This is a military document that came out in 2016, but it was produced. And it goes through all the steps for a preparation of revolutionary cadres of masses for revolution. I don't know if you've ever seen this document, but we've gone through it so many times over the years. And in it, you have right away the third step, assassinations. And then toward the finally toward the top, we see that one of them is increased political violence, terror, sabotage. Are we in a civil war? Because I put out a documentary called Sabotage in 2019, and I made the statement there, and I opened it with a video clip by Daniel Greenfield, who says we're in a civil war. This is when elected officials, particularly Democrats, do not want to follow the rule of law. They don't want to go with legitimate elections. And he says, but people say to me, how can you say we're in a civil war? No one's shooting. He said, that's how a civil war ends. And then we produced that documentary and started talking about what does a civil war look like? Now, I think we also have on top of it, as we did in the subtitle of that documentary, we were talking about civil war, globalism, and World War III. And I don't know where those two things merge, because part of a civil war comes from foreign enemies that come in and stir up the civil war as part of World War III. So at some point, civil war and World War III can merge, because the civil war, the chaos is the preparation for World War III. And I don't know that Charlie Kirk wasn't taken out by someone that is tied back to some enemy state of our country. There's too many questions to even know.
Well, there's too many questions, that's for sure. And as Randolph Bourne once famously said, war is the health of the state. If you want permanent chaos and the permanent recension of civil liberties and targeting certain people that aren't properly gung-ho, then you declare war and you be in a constant state of war. And that pretty much describes the 20th century, unfortunately, and describes what we're doing today by some foreign policy hawks that I vehemently disagree with, that want war on every front. But having said all of that, I think there are a two-pronged answer here. One is this sort of conspiratorial Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, that we're just trying to foment riots. And they got their way in Minneapolis in 2020, when I was the Senate candidate. And that was clearly coming from the outside. Piles of bricks would magically show up in downtown Minneapolis as the third police precinct was burning to the ground. Something was orchestrated there, and that could very well be exactly what you're talking about. Just foment chaos, destroy faith in the institution, certainly destroy the justice system. But the other thing you've got to understand is the innate sense of totalitarianism, especially on the left. And that is, whether it's communism or socialism, I mean, it doesn't really matter whether it's fascism or communism. They all meet eventually. It's totalitarianism. And what they fundamentally believe, as I told Tucker Carlson 8 years ago, is that they are righteous and they are elitist. And there's this strain of righteousness in them that cannot be subdued to the point where they think they are so righteous and so right that anything they do, the ends justify the means. Anything they do is above board. It's above the law. It's above anything you could possibly imagine except Judgment Day. And that's going to be pretty harsh on these folks. But until then, we've got to live here. And this strain of righteousness or this conspiracy, I don't know what it is either, Brannon, but we both are unleashed right now. Both have no limits right now. Both have been given carte blanche by the institutional media to keep doing it, and we'll cheer you on. And that is what has brought us to this day, I'm afraid.
Can the nation survive? You're a historian. I mean, I've listened to your show for years. I used to listen to you. You were on KSTP, 1500 AM in the Twin Cities. You and I went to lunch one day. That's now probably been
20 years ago.
25 plus years ago. You're a historian. You know history better than almost anyone else I know. Do countries normally survive this and come back that are this divided,
there's
this
a day of
broken
reckoning.
down?
No, there is a day of reckoning, and the day of reckoning occurs and the country goes one way or another. It's a fork in the road, if you will. And we're getting awfully close to that. We were obviously awfully close in 1860. We were awfully close in the 1960s. We've been close several times. But the thing that actually really scares me now, say compared to the 1960s, is that the SDS and the Black Panthers and the Weather Underground were considered fringe elements by Republicans and Democrats. So you and I have talked about this before. It was Mayor Daley of Chicago, a Democrat, that took the batons to the radical protesters, because even Democrats didn't want them around. Today, That is 35–40% of the country. Just go look at TikTok right now and how they're celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination. So you've got not just a fringe element that's happened to the nation, years of indoctrination in education, years of indoctrination by the mainstream media, years of corporate cowardice to go along. Oh yeah, what's the NFL doing again this year? Oh yeah, let's get those in zone placards up while Ukrainian girls are being slaughtered on a light rail train in Charlotte. Corporate cowardice, the sports world, you name it. They've got George Floyd signs at the Twin Stadium in Minneapolis still. This is something where their priorities are so fundamentally different from everything that held this country together for 200 years that the day of reckoning could go either way. And that's the reason we're seeing this action being taken.
And we've got now breaking news. FBI Director Kash Patel says the suspect in custody has been released. So the second suspect has now been released.
Oh boy.
The suspect, the shooter, is still at large tonight. I mean, I'm going to ask the colonel when he comes on, because he actually oversaw a sniper crew multiple times, even did oversight with his sniper crew protecting the president of the United States at the time, Barack Hussein Obama. So he knows all about snipers and Overwatch. But do you think, Jason, that someone can get in that position, pull off that shot in one shot and get out, and we're not talking about someone highly trained? And those people don't do it for, a Starbucks coffee card. This has to be highly, highly organized. And the question is why? First of all, do you agree with my first premise? And number two, why? Why Charlie Kirk? Was it because there is a generation of young people that are rising up? We're watching what may be, Jason, young people. Well, we are watching young people in Nepal rise up. That seems to be a communist regime, friends of Beijing. Their police are supposedly corrupt. The videos show the young people approaching yesterday, hands up and applauding. They're being called forward. They're going forward, and the police open fire on them. And then the young people are like, well, forget that. And they start taking over the government and chasing down the highest levels.
Isn't just another crazy kid with a social media trail?
Yeah.
It just happens to know how to operate like I say, a sniper rifle, and pretty good shot at that range too. Again, as you said, you can go back to Butler. We can go back to Minnesota. We can go back time again and again and see that we're not getting the answers to this. And there's something really sinister happening. Now, I don't know what the answer is. And now that the second suspect has been released, it only deepens suspicion. But this is the fundamental problem right now in America, and that is people have zero faith in their institutions, and for good reason. I mean, look at COVID, for heaven's sakes. Everything the medical authorities told us has turned out to be wrong. And so what do you now, a second opinion is now a conspiracy? No, you're supposed to ask for second opinions. But that's not what they said at the time. No, if you had a second opinion there, no, you must be a denier, right? So there's something a lot more sinister going on here. And whether it's orchestrated to the point of a professional assassination today, or whether it's people taking action under their own guidance just because they're being incited by our institutional forces on the left, I don't know.
Why?
But
Why Charlie Kirk?
We're at a crossroads.
Why
I will
Charlie
tell you
Kirk?
that, my friend.
Why Charlie Kirk, Jason? Why do you think?
Oh, I think obviously Charlie was very effective. So you wanted somebody, if the point was, as I think it was, to silence people who disagree with the regime, right? We don't want any of this. We don't want any trouble. We're going to silence these people in the same way that somebody tried to silence Trump, or Steve Scalise, or the threats that came into my office when I was in Congress. There's a reason this is just happening in the last 8 years. The other, prior to that, we were playing between the 40-yard lines. Now you have a paradigm shift. You're talking about changing how healthcare authorities do things. You're talking about protecting American manufacturing first. You're talking about trying to end global warfare on a constant perpetual warfare. There's a lot of special interests in Washington that I ran up against that don't like that. What they're willing to do about it, well, hopefully we'll find out if we get to the bottom of it. But none of this is a coincidence. That's the point in all of this.
Is it also we were headed toward midterms and Charlie Kirk had registered who knows how many people to vote and get out? Some say that Donald Trump maybe not have even seen a second term if it wasn't for the efforts of Turning Point USA.
I think he was an example. They had to pick someone, as I say, who was very, very efficient, very, very productive in what he was trying to do. Very
Are you saying
good
this is intimidation?
Yes.
Is this a message? Is this like the mob sending a message?
Exactly. Exactly what it is. Don't threaten the regime or else. And I think that's exactly what it was. I think that's
how
what
will
the
life
attempt on
change?
Trump was.
How will life change for conservatives going forward? We have our national conference coming up, Jason, October 3rd and 4th, a Friday and Saturday. We have our national conference. We'll have Gordon Chang. We'll have.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the Colonel can answer
people.
this when he's your next guest here. But I used to think, now maybe Charlie Kirk doesn't warrant this kind of security, but even an amateur security firm, I would think, would glance at rooftops.
I know. I said that today on the radio, on TV. Like that seemed too easy of a kill zone to me. Too easy.
And we had the same thing in Butler.
Yeah.
And so you've got this either very, very lax security going on, which could be it, or you've got somebody on the inside or something. But I just have a hard time. This is another deranged trans shooter out of the Twin Cities that decided I couldn't take it anymore. This looks much more ominous than that, or maybe there's much more to that. Maybe there's much more to all these things. And that's what's really scary. And that's, the last chapter in my book, Party Animal, was called The Reckoning. And the reckoning is when people quit apologizing for standing up for their beliefs, be they religious, be they civilization, be they philosophical, whatever. And what the other side is trying to do is make certain you don't stand up for those beliefs. And we're in the midst of the reckoning right now.
Here is the cover of the book. It also is an audio, Party Animal. Jason Lewis, former U.S. congressman, ran for U.S. Senate. Many of us think he won that race, by the way, in 2020. Party Animal, The Truth About President Trump, Power, Politics, and the Partisan Press. Jason Lewis, you can get it on Amazon. The audio book that he read himself, or the book that you can read yourself. It's available. Jason, do you have anything else where people could connect with you?
Well, I will say in the book, I go through the violence that started in 2017, culminating with the attempted assassination of then Whip Scalise. But I went through what Indivisible was doing, what Antifa was doing, and the book goes right through the riots in Minneapolis. And I hate to say it, but it's a precursor to what's going on right now. And if you want to see the origins of this, read the book.
Jason, we need to get you back. And as always, thank you for being with us. Be safe, my friend.
Very sad day. Everybody say a prayer for Charlie's family.
Amen to that. Jason Lewis checking in tonight, author of Party Animal, The Truth About President Trump, Power, Politics, and the Partisan Press. You should get it. Joining me now is our esteemed panel. They were with us today, and we appreciate them coming back tonight. Colonel Rob Maness, David Pine. He also served in the military. He's president of the EMP task force. Annie Cyrus, Leo Holman, they're all here. Let's start out with David Pine. David, you're the ones texting me these stories. Now we're getting reports that the second suspect has been released. So we have a trained, what apparently is clearly a very skilled and trained sniper assassin that's still on the loose.
We do. Yeah, I live 40 miles from the site of the shooting. As I mentioned earlier today, two of my former stepchildren were within hundreds of feet of the shot. They didn't see it, but they were in the built at UVU when the shooting occurred, and were told on loudspeakers to evacuate. But I watched that conference with the Utah Department of Public Safety, and Utah Governor Spencer Cox, announced that in almost the very same sentence, when he announced they had a second suspect in custody, he said, "Our message to the shooter is, we will find you." And so that indicated to me a very low confidence that the second suspect was indeed the shooter, despite the fact that FBI Director Kash Patel seemed to indicate that they had their guy. And so it didn't surprise me that he's been released. President Trump has since sent out a message that he's ordering the execution of whoever the shooter is. Once they're convicted, he's ordering their execution. So he's throwing down the hammer very, very strongly against this political assassin. And I'd like to echo the pretty much everything that Congressman Lewis stated. This was an act of political terrorism. It was far left extremists. There's an unholy cabal, I think, of that you've talked about, the deep state, the CIA, the Zelensky regime, Ukraine's SBU, which is their former KGB secret service that CIA funded, and then of course the Democrat Party, all of which are prime suspects in this assassination, as well as the assassination attempts against President Trump. Thomas Matthew Crooks, he had foreign bank accounts. That hasn't really been investigated. We've never uncovered the truth about his motivations. We don't even know if he was the assassin. Sadly, the Trump administration has not released any of those details or that information. But my prime suspect tonight, as I have studied all the facts about this assassination, is that it very possibly could have been conducted by Ukraine, as there were multiple statements against Biden's war in Ukraine that had been made by Charlie Kirk, and reportedly, according to Colonel Rob Maness and one of our former colleagues at the Committee on the Present Danger, Charlie Kirk was on Ukraine SBU's kill list. So I have had the honor of being on their blacklist. I was not on their kill list, but if it's true that Charlie Kirk was on their kill list, that would certainly raise the level of suspicion that the Zelensky regime was responsible.
Let's go to, by the way, David, you text me during the broadcast today saying that I know the shooter. The suspect, the initial, maybe Logan can bring up the footage for the audience that wasn't there with us today, of this guy being dragged off. They've let him go. That was really weird. But, here I'm sitting at the news desk live, and you're like, I know the shooter. I know that guy. I'm like, well, get him on the line. But thankfully, you don't know the shooter because that guy's turned out not to be it. You say he's someone that you have dealt with in the Republican Party in Utah?
Yeah, that's George Zinn. So George Zinn, I've known him since 2008. He is mentally unstable. He has a record of being arrested. He likes to be arrested. Based on what I've heard this afternoon, he apparently confessed to the murder, which is why he was arrested. And that's why even though he was released by federal agents, he was booked in the county jail on charges of obstruction of justice because all the police resources that could have been used to actually track down the actual murderer, who was seen, running on a rooftop at UVU, were instead misdirected on him, as he had like 4 arresting agents, that were taking him into custody. So I'm very, very saddened that he chose to do that because it's going to make it a lot harder to track down the real assassin.
Mm-hmm. Was he put up to that? Did he do that on his own? Because that seems like awfully convenient timing for certainly to the benefit of the shooter.
I honestly think he had no connection to the shooter. Was not part of this conspiracy. As this other individual, Omar Hajda, who may have been the second suspect that was arrested, obviously he had foreknowledge because he posted about it in advance. He said something big's going to happen today, and I hope that Charlie Kirk gets eliminated.
Oh, is that the second person they arrested? Was this Omar dude?
So that was, I haven't been able to confirm who the second suspect that was arrested was, but that was the one name that was an obvious person of interest because he seemed to have advanced knowledge of the assassination. So he likely was part of the conspiracy, at least as someone who had that advanced knowledge. But It's shocking that someone. I think probably calling him a friend was a bit too much, but it's someone I knew very well. It's someone that sat behind me at the Republican National Convention, and someone I would say that is a moderate Republican activist and not a conservative.
Let's bring in Colonel Rob Maness and the rest of the panel, Annie Cyrus, Leo Holman. Let's see all of them tonight. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get a response, Colonel, from you, and then Leo, then Annie, about the comments you heard tonight from former Congressman, senatorial candidate, who many of us think won in 2020, but was stolen from him with voter fraud, Jason Lewis. What did you make of his remarks tonight, Colonel?
I think he was right on target. To get to the question of this assassin, if the shot was where we think it was based on video evidence and everything, I mean, that's more than 4 times further away than the shot that Crooks took at Donald Trump in Butler. So definitely not an easy shot. The sniper is under stress. No matter how calm they may appear externally, the human body and the mind still reacts to a stressful situation. And it was an extremely accurate shot from very far away. I got the opportunity to look at the close-up video of Charlie from the front, and you could see the supersonic shockwave hit his chest, and I seen that in the last time we talked.
So when Logan
I would have said it was a kill shot immediately.
Logan was mentioning during dinner, he's like, you can see his body rise up. Is that the sonic force you're talking about?
That's it. So this assassin has a lot of training, probably years of training and practice, and like I said earlier, looks like another operation to me. I don't know who's behind it. I really sincerely wish we had confidence in our investigatory institutions in this country, but unfortunately, we're not in a situation where any average citizen can have confidence in those institutions. As David brought up, we know little about Crooks. None of the stuff's been investigated, and it needs to be investigated and publicized. Enough with the secrecy. Enough with it. The other assassin from the golf course was connected to Ukraine extensively. If there are government entities from whoever's government, whether it be our own or Ukraine's or anybody else's, involved in these assassination attempts, and now this assassination of Charlie Kirk, who Secretary Bobby Kennedy said was the most eloquent truth teller of our era in politics. Once again, that person has been taken out and killed in their youth, right in their prime when they were getting ready to do things even bigger than what Charlie has already achieved, and he's achieved an amazing set of activities in his short life.
I have to say, I don't think the shooter will be found. I think the chances of the shooter being found are very, very, very slim. I mean, if this guy was as professional as he seems to be, was able to get off that campus with all the cameras and to get away without any any detection, this guy knows what he's doing. And the chances of him being found, I think, are very slim, Colonel.
I could sit here and say that I agree with you, but I also remember we live in an age that's covered very well by digital cameras and those kind of things. The challenge is these, especially the violent leftists, have developed what's called black bloc dressing at a high level of art and are very hard to identify. Even if we do get him on camera, it'd be very difficult to identify if he's not carrying a cell phone, or we can't identify a vehicle that he's in to maybe be able to track the vehicle. It'd be very, very difficult to catch this individual. And as the congressman said, I think it's too bad because, or as David said, it's unfortunate because the law enforcement folks that were dealing with Mr. Zinn could have been used to pursue the actual killer. Do you think I'm going to go to Leo before he falls asleep on us. Do you think that the shooter meant to hit Charlie in the neck?
or do you think he was going for a headshot, was just down a little low? Because we were discussing that over dinner, and I said, I think he meant to hit him in the neck because he hit that vein, which we saw the amount of blood coming out. You can't survive that. And JJ was talking about the exit wound at the back. And he said, can you imagine what that size was with that size cartridge or ammunition?
It's really hard to tell because, as JJ mentioned in our earlier panel, Brandon, Charlie was under that canopy, and the elevation of the assassin's position was the angle was quite steep there. So I don't know if he could see Charlie's head.
So he may have no choice but to go for that shot.
Probably the chest and the heart area. That's where, if you can't, be confirmed of a headshot as a sniper, you're going to go for center of mass in the heart, upper chest area if you can. And I don't know what the wind conditions were like and those kind of things, but the wind will have an effect, along with the stress on the individual, will have an effect on the actual bullet's aim. But it was definitely a kill shot. Once I saw it up close and saw the body's response and blood emanating from the wound as much as it did, I knew he was a fatality.
Mm-hmm. And we kind of knew that on the air. We all pretty much, Leo, said that on the air. We're like, that's not survivable. Just from the volume of blood that was lost and knowing that major vein was hit, that artery, we were all saying to each other here, you just can't survive that. And of course, it was all delayed, and he was in stable condition and being, most of us on the panel weren't buying that. I know it upset some of our viewers, saying we're going to count on a miracle, and we would have all liked to have seen that. But just going from a natural perspective, you can't lose that much blood and likely survive. I'm not sure you could survive that kind of thing if you were in the ER at that moment, because it's just such a traumatic wound. Leo, what have you gathered since we went off the air that you think you should bring to the attention of the audience tonight?
Well, I mean, I'm just following it like you are, and they've released a second subject now. They never called him a suspect. And so I, like Mr. Pine, I did not take it seriously when I heard them talking about it. No matter what Kash Patel said in his tweet, the governor went in front of a press conference and said that, we're going to basically continue hunting you down or something to that effect, and then calling him a person of interest that's in custody. It just didn't sound like a serious suspect. So I wasn't at all surprised to find out, as you did about 10, 15 minutes ago, that person has now been released. I really like what the former congressman said when he said this didn't happen in a vacuum, and he kind of laid out the history. Countries, nations don't get to this point overnight. It takes a period of years for things to sort of keep simmering, and finally they start to boil over. And I think that's the point we're at now, Brannon, where we're going to start seeing more of these types of events, sadly. When I first saw it, I shouldn't have felt this way. But when I first saw it come across my phone in a Telegram post, I dismissed it. I thought, oh, that's just fake news. I couldn't believe Charlie had been shot. But we're going to have to start steeling ourselves, as JJ or somebody said on your earlier program, and getting used to this, because it's not going to stop. This country is broken. It's so divided. I think politicians on both sides of the aisle, I guess I'm a little different from most of the conservatives you're going to hear today and tomorrow and the next day. I think that the rhetoric is on both sides of the aisle, the insightful rhetoric. I think both sides need to be tamping things down if they sincerely love this country and don't want to see us go to civil war. We need some sort of unifying speech from President Trump. Some of the rhetoric I've seen on both sides, Brannon, just in the last, I want to say 2 months, is things that I've never heard. I've never heard before coming from high elected officials.
Can you give us a couple examples?
And when we have crazy people out there who hear these things, and there's just no telling what they're going to do. Now, I do agree that this looks like a professional hit, not just some random TikToker who didn't like Charlie Kirk. This definitely looks like a paid hire for kill. And that's what went down with precision today. And I agree with you that if that is the case, it's very unlikely we're going to find out who did this atrocity. They may come up with a patsy. Somebody else may be arrested and have this hung around their neck. But I think the chances are very low that we're going to find the real shooter. It's possible, but I wouldn't put it at a high percentage right now.
I agree. You and I now are in agreement on that one. Let's bring in Annie Cyrus. Annie, what do you think in regards to the fact that Charlie was becoming more vocal on Islam? Now, you and I are still here, and we've been blabbing and screaming about Islam for how many decades now? So we're still here. I'm hanging out with you and Usama Dakdok and Sharam Hadian and giving all you guys, all you Islamophobes, a bunch of media, free media and platforms. So we're all still here, but folks are saying that, I think it's because you got really vocal about Islam. What do you think, Annie?
Well, yes, we are still here. I'll address that we're still here second. I actually finished searching, and on some of the areas you can find Charlie Kirk's name by name, not by organization of Turning Point, but named, is on the project, Islamophobia Project of Care. If you go look up the Islamophobia directory of Care, you'll find Charlie Kirk named over and over. You also find his name on Electronic Intifada website. He has a regular tag, Charlie Kirk tag, as far-right pro-Israeli Zionist. That's Electronic Intifada. And then I was able to locate Charlie Kirk's name on over a dozen articles on IRNA, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran's news website. I would say it is safe to say that, yes, he was becoming popular on the Islamophobia side of things. But the reason, or not, I shouldn't say reason, but yes, we are here for a few reasons. You do have a couple of pictures with President Trump, but me and you, Brannon, we haven't reached the 5.3 million followers on X account and invited to White House dinners yet. Mm-hmm. Have we?
No.
That's where the difference is. You early on hinted at it. And the whole point, they went after Charlie Kirk on all fronts. Again, I said it from early on, red, green. I'm not blaming one side or the other. It was a coordinated effort by both sides, which is the bottom line issue we're facing today on all issues. But they went after him because, please put this very wrong phrasing here due to my lack of better English word finding in my head, but they killed two birds with one stone. A lot of speakers, I literally personally have received messages of, are you canceling your Minnesota speech on the 24th? I'm like, no. I haven't heard from the organizers. I don't know if they're going to cancel or not. You're receiving messages of cancel your event. That's the first reaction. They're hoping a lot of people are going to go quiet, at least for a while, either on the Marxist, anti-Marxist speech, anti-socialist, anti-Islamist, whatever there is. So fear factor, because Charlie Kirk has millions, literally millions of younger generation looked at him as a leader. You silence him. For those of us who can think clearly, they didn't prove him wrong. They just proved that they ran out of words to debate him. So they had to silence him. But right now, the youth, the younger generation are going to be very confused for a while. They're going to try to find a new leader. And I encourage all the people involved at Turning Point USA, carry on the flag. But the fear factor is number one. The second thing is, yes, he was becoming too big to be ignored, to be silenced through censorship. So I personally think that's why he was targeted. And again, he was touching on some of the most sensitive topics, including Palestine, Israel, Iran, Islam, all of that. These are all dangerous things to touch on.
Yeah.
And again, I personally, I don't want this to be taken wrong. This is not a blame, but I personally would not, if I attend an event as a speaker like that location, not that it would save my life, but at least I would probably have a bulletproof vest on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, certain security. I went back and watched the videos over and over, all the angles. I'm like, why was he so exposed? When you see the latest video that came out after his shot and you see his security team jumping to get him off the chair, you realize how far they were all from him. Some of them were jumping over the tent to get to him. The whole setup is just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense for such a high profile person. Was it because it was a friendly crowd? I don't know, but bottom line is we can't put our guards down.
No, you can't. And yet we had on Lieutenant Colonel, help me, Logan, Dave Grossman, talking today about the fact that he basically said it really doesn't matter. If they want you dead, you're dead. If they want you dead, you're dead. Unless you're the president of the United States, if they want you dead, you're dead. And, you know, I do agree with you, Annie, and I do think that he was in a perfect spot to be assassinated. And one has to wonder, has anyone gone and looked at the venues he's been at the last few months and any of the venues that we know are being publicized for future events that won't now take place with him? But compare that venue to ones before or any that we know are booked from today on, and ask yourself, did any of those venues fit the venue as well as today's? Because frankly, that was like Butler. It's like, who picked that venue? Are we letting the enemies of the president and Charlie Kirk and these people pick the venues? Because these look like pretty well-chosen venues if you want someone taken out. And I'm not as high profile as he is, but when we had a gunman come into our conference in Sioux Falls, and we showed the video, ironically, 2 nights ago with his Quran and threaten us, and then sit out in his video and brandish 5 weapons, 2 semi-automatics, and what was said to be 1,200 rounds of ammo, and threatened us. And he did 7 months in prison for that, only after we turned it into a national story a week after we got home, because we didn't say anything for a week because we still had 4 more cities to go to. But ironically, when we showed up in the next city, which was La Crosse, Wisconsin, we were met by the police with a sniper. My wife can verify that. And they were standing there with a clipboard inside a building. We weren't even outside. And apparently there was a building next door that had a high level on it. And my wife was standing there. She heard him. I heard him. And the guy in charge said, we want the blinds closed and we want someone up there monitoring that building that was higher than the one we were in. What I'm saying is, even those guys knew, don't let someone get the high level on you. I'm just saying. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that is a venue that would make me very nervous. If I were a security guy coming in there scoping this thing out, I would say, we can't do this here. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback.
I know. Take mitigating measures and do an adequate site assessment. And every rooftop has to be covered. Every rooftop has to be covered when you're setting up a principal in a security situation that way. Now, the canopy was probably one of the mitigating measures for the high elevated positions, possibly, but you still have to have a person on those rooftops where you have direct line of sight like that.
Yep.
There's just no excuse for it.
Why have security?
On the other hand, a professional sniper team is going to do a site assessment too. So quite often it doesn't matter what the venue is. If you have a good opposing team for you, they're going to do a really good site assessment too and find the best position to do their mission from. So, I mean, that's the challenge of all this, is that you have two opposing sides trying to get this work done. But the bottom line is it's routine. You have to cover the high elevated positions overlooking wherever the principal is going to be moving, where they're going to be stationary, and anybody else that's with them that's right up next to them. And that's not happening.
I think we just, just one second, guys, don't forget that point. I think we just had an Oval Office video made by President Trump. You want to play it, please, Logan?
Grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
President Donald Trump tonight from the Oval Office. All right, Annie, I know you wanted to say something before we went to that. Please go ahead.
Yes, I was going, if I recall correctly earlier, Colonel Manus, you mentioned that we have a radical leftist in the White House, right? Or in the Department of War or Defense.
Yeah, we have extremists all throughout this government. But
And-
yeah,
and
I
there
was
you
talking
go.
about one at a high level position in the Department of War.
We also allow a lot of what we call rhinos inside these organizations, such as Turning Point USA. So, Brannon, when you were bringing up who's setting up the venue, who's doing the security check, my point is maybe it's time for everyone be a tad bit more picky, a little bit more paranoid when you're hiring your security, your management, your bodyguards, whomever. Look into their background and stop believing people go from hating Trump to loving Trump over time. That just doesn't happen.
I think JJ Carroll's going to jump in here with us. We do have JJ. He's going to grab him. People are asking us, David Pine, what they want to hear a little bit more from you as to why he might Kirk may have been on Charlie Kirk may have been on a Ukrainian kill list. Why? They want to know about that. They're not. Some folks just aren't. I mean, you and I know about it. We all talk about it, but some new folks aren't familiar with that. They didn't know there was a kill list.
Yeah, so I was one of the original 28 Americans that was placed on Ukraine's blacklist. Colonel McGregor and some others were on the kill list. And the reason was we were arguing in favor of peace with Russia. We wanted some kind of diplomatic political settlement, ending the war in Ukraine. We thought it was unnecessary. It was provoked by Joe Biden. It was provoked, by Zelensky's refusal to implement the Minsk II agreement. And as, from what I heard from Charlie Kirk, he was in full agreement with that position. He didn't publish a 15-point peace plan like I did in the National Interest in June 2022 to get me on that blacklist. But he obviously had a much greater following, and he was, a passionate supporter of Trump's position, which was to end the war in Ukraine as soon as Trump came to office. So. That's been a consistent position he's had. He was very critical of Zelensky and kind of the dictatorial measures he's taken. He was critical of the counteroffensive. He talked about how Zelensky didn't seem interested at all in peace. He was very critical of Zelensky's rant and raving in the White House in the Oval Office on February 28th. When he derided President Trump as claiming he was repeating Putin's talking points, twice during their conversation that was, videoed for everyone to see. So I think, Ukraine derided me as an information terrorist worthy of being prosecuted for war crimes. And I have no doubt if I were to travel to Ukraine today, I would be arrested and detained, if not imprisoned. And the SBU, the Ukrainian SBU, has a record of assassinating not just Russian military leaders and also civilians, but also Ukrainian opposition leaders and even children. There's Ukrainian children who've been active on social media, posting about peace, in favor of peace with Russia. Many of them ethnic Russians themselves have been on the death list. So, I wasn't very surprised to hear that Charlie Kirk may have been on their kill list as well. And as Rob Manis mentioned, the second assassin was a recruiter he was a CIA asset and also a recruiter for Ukraine's Foreign Legion that had traveled to Kyiv and had lots of pictures in Kyiv as he was openly trying to help Ukraine recruit additional fighters to defend Ukraine from Russia. And as you and I have discussed previously, the shooter that was identified before Thomas Matthew Crooks also had extensive ties to Ukraine and had traveled to Kyiv extensively as a Democrat activist before Thomas Crook's body was cremated to eliminate any DNA evidence that would prove that he was in fact the shooter and not the original Ukrainian activist as was previously alleged.
Let's bring in JJ Carroll. Thank you for that, because people are asking. JJ Carroll, he's former high-ranking border security guy, knows quite a bit about dealing with firearms. Of course, Colonel Manus has overseen sniper teams protecting even the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama. So he knows. So we got some guys here tonight that know about protection and firearms. you and I discussed earlier today, I'm not an expert, but I know what guns sound like just from covering enough stories of and listening to the audios over and over. And the first thing I thought when I heard the rifle fire was that sounds like a rifle. It doesn't sound like a pistol. And then you started getting communications from people saying that it seemed to have been a 308. I can bring up what that gun looks like and the ammunition for it. Pretty big. I mean, I have a 308. It's a deer rifle. I mean, it's in the. I wish I had brought one up into the studio tonight, but we're talking about a really big little, projectile missile, almost like a little mini missile. I'll show it in a minute. Now they're saying they've let a second suspect go. I believe, and Leo believes, they're never going to find who did this. They may find some patsy to blame it on, but they'll never find the guy who did it. I don't think. Because if he could get up there, do this, pull it off, and leave and not be caught, this is a professional. This guy is already in the wind. I mean, do you really think the chances of him really catching the real shooter are that high right now at this time, JJ?
Well, I think it's worse than that. I think what makes it worse than that is even if they do find someone, no one's going to believe them. No one's going to believe that's the shooter. And I think that's the greatest sin or the greatest accomplishment of the left is now it could be plain as day. This guy is a shooter. Here it is. And still there is a large segment of our population that will not believe our government. That's how far we have gone as far as trust within our government. No, I don't. I have no trust in my government. I'm talking about the current government that's in there now. I don't. The deep state runs all the way down all the levels from low-level scum all the way up to the top. And Trump has people within his own cabinet and his own circle that have been never Trumpers. So I don't believe in this government. I believe that we do not live in a republic anymore. I don't have any representation. No one represents me. Who represents me in the Congress? Speaker Johnson? We've gone 9 months, guys, and not one single arrest. So when you say, I don't think we're ever going to find out who did this, well, hell yeah, you're right. We haven't had arrest in 9 months. Nobody. No one's been arrested. They're hiding the Epstein files. No one should trust this government on any level. Don't trust your DMV. Don't trust your mailman. And surely you're not going to trust the politicians in Washington, D.C.
Well, I trust my mailman because I've known him for like 20 years and he's really good to me and he gets me my mail even when they're off hours because he gave me a cell phone so that I can actually come to the back door and get it. So I'm going to keep trusting him. But everybody else is suspicious.
Good for you.
Everybody else is suspicious.
He's probably a Soviet sleeper.
He's probably what, Colonel?
A Soviet sleeper.
He's even let my wife and I come to his house to show us how you silk screen because he silk screens on the side. So I'm trusting my mail, but he's not my mailman. He just works at the post office. He's probably going to lose his job now, but I mentioned that. But everybody else is highly suspicious, no doubt about it. This is what a 308 cartridge looks like. Look how tall it is just compared to the box, right? And that's what we're talking about. And then, of course, we can show you what a 308 rifle looks like. Looks like that right there. And, of course, we got a lot of deer hunters probably in the audience tonight, if I could just get that to quit messing around there, who probably know what something like that is. They have one. They own them. But we're talking about a massive cartridge here. I asked earlier, do you think that the shooter was going for a headshot or meant to hit him in the neck? And Colonel Manus brought up the fact that the tent could have been covering, so he really couldn't get a clear shot of a visual of Charlie's head. What are your thoughts on that, JJ?
You know, I don't even want to speculate because where is the shooter? Like, what was his line of sight? We don't even know anything, right? It just looks. I mean, now they're saying it bounced off or ricocheted off his maybe his vest, his chest plate. I don't know.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that he was wearing a bulletproof vest?
Well, that's what they're saying too. So now, I mean, everything's speculation, but what I'm seeing on multiple sources are saying, well, look at the slowing down the trajectory or the visual of the bullet. And they're saying it looks like, because when you see, what I found strange when I first saw the videos is his shirt jumps up like something got in his shirt, and I thought that's weird looking, and you just can't tell. I don't know. And like the Colonel said, you're not going to know anything, at least for 24 hours. That is honestly the truth, and everyone's going to be chasing their tails. They don't even know where the guy is. Think of all the cameras. Think of, there was what, 2,000 or 3,000 people there, so everybody had their phones
sheriff
out.
said 3,000. He said they had 6 officers and 3,000 attendees. Now, I'm just going to say that seems like a very, very small amount of officers for 3,000 people at an event that is highly charged like Charlie Kirk's. 6 officers? Are you kidding me? Look, we've had events in hotels, JJ, where the Bloomington, was it the Bloomington Hilton? When Antifa and Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Muslim Brotherhood proponents went on social media, and we have all the screenshots, in April of 2018, and put terrorist threats against the buildings, which caused these hotels to pull our contracts after we were on the road, other than one, the Holiday Inn Convention Center in Des Moines, Iowa, which they didn't pull it because the owner is one of my good friends, and his wife is one of our broadcasters, Tamara Scott. Lowell is one of my friends. And Lowell and his brother, who owned the family business that their dad started, said, you guys can go pound sand. We rent to Bernie Sanders. We'll rent to Brannon Howse. There's free speech in America. Boom. And hung up the phone. Everyone else got terrorist threats. Then they caved, pulled our contracts. Shockingly, that hotel in Bloomington, Minnesota, next to the Mall of America, did not. They just called and said, you're going to have at least 5 police officers that you hire before we'll let you come in the building. And I said, well, okay, but why? I knew about the threats, but why? What do you know? And they said, we had a state trooper came into the building yesterday, said, I don't know who's about to hold an event in your building, but they better have a lot of police because we're getting a lot of chatter about this event. And we were talking about ISIS, and we had the man who had gone undercover into Muslim Brotherhood, grew the Sharia beard, and came out of Muslim Brotherhood, which founded Hamas, with 12,000 documents. His son, who used to sit at this desk all the time. His father is the former federal agent who's gone undercover in over 425 mosques, and we just hired him to go into one down in Texas a few months ago. If you guys remember, we paid him to go down there and put a report out. And that's his dad, Dave Govitz. So that's who was speaking with me, along with a retired FBI guy that used to track these jihadis. And the state trooper walked in there and said, I don't know who's got an event here, but I've been sent over here to tell them they better have lots of security. So the hotel says, we're not going to cancel your event. I'm like, well, everybody else has. Out of 5 cities, Des Moines let us go. The others have canceled. Green Bay, La Crosse, and Milwaukee. You're the last one standing. Of all places, Minneapolis, Bloomington, Minnesota, you're going to let us come in there? And they said, yeah, well, we think you have a First Amendment right. Wow. But we want 5 cops, 5 police officers. They had 6. We were going to have 2 events, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, because we had so many people get tickets. They were free, but you get tickets. And you're telling me you're going to carry out an event with 3,000 people, JJ, with only 6 police officers?
Well, I think that's going to change, or has changed overnight, right? I don't think that's going to happen ever again, because I honestly believe, I love to get your guys' take on this. I don't think this will be the last conservative voice that gets taken out.
No, it won't be.
They're not going to stop now. No. They're close to winning. They're so close to winning, they can taste it. They can feel it. And they just took out one of the greatest players in the conservative movement, maybe ever, because he was changing the minds of all of the young people. And that's where change has to take place. So I don't think they're going to stop there. I really don't. And you have a lot of conservative, you have a lot of big voices. Benny Johnson, he's growing in that realm. You, Brannon, you got all kinds of people, Candace Owens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We this conservative movement may not agree with each other with the finer points, but we all have the same belief that America is great and we need to bring her back to her greatness. But I don't believe that the left will allow this just to go. There's going to be one after another because they feel like they're going to get us on our heels. We're going to be afraid because we have given them to be emboldened that we are gutless. We are cowards. How do you think we got to this place where we're mutilating children? Honestly, think about that just right now. If 10 years ago I came to you and said, hey, I'm from the future, we are so screwed up in America. Parents are going to be mutilating their own children and changing their sexes. You guys would throw me out. You'd be texting Brannon and go, get this guy off the show. He's a quack. That's how far we've come as a nation. So they're close. They're this close to taking over and winning America. Why would they stop now?
And yet you have Kash Patel in the FBI, you have Trump in the White House, and they're that close to still taking over, Colonel. How is that possible?
It's because they've been doing it for decades. Congressman Lewis was exactly correct. This event is not in isolation. These series of events are not in isolation. JJ is exactly correct. They feel like they are very close to winning, and it's incumbent upon all of us to step into this breach and replace Charlie Kirk. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many followers you have. We have to continue this message. We've all been on the same message anyway. All of us came of age politically in the last 15 years where we saw this message even before Donald Trump was on the scene. Charlie, myself, you, Brannon, you've all seen that this message of Americanism is the one that young people embrace,
right?
Because they know that it brings them a prosperous future, it brings them a safe future, and they can prepare in America for their children and grandchildren like they wish that their parents and grandparents had prepared for them. And that's why we have to do this. We have to be louder. We have to be present. We have to go to these places and insist we be allowed to speak and spread this message more so than ever before, because we can't let Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action just go away into oblivion. All those kids that run those organizations are very dedicated, and we have to let them know that if they need a speaker, one of us will show up. We don't care what the risk is, because if we don't do that, they will win. JJ is exactly right. They're very close, and we have to redouble our efforts.
I want to show this.
In.
I agree. I want to show this and then talk about this unconventional warfare pocket guide here in a moment. But first, I want to play this video of Charlie Kirk himself. Logan.
Is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. At the core of the left, at the core of a liberal, is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And no, we're very aware of that. I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
And yet I think one of his last tweets was about this as well. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I just saw it a while ago. I'll find it while you guys talk. But one of his very
you can find it on Laura Loomer.
Was about
she just retweeted it.
Anyone want to comment on what we just heard and what we've been talking about? How about you, Leo? Jump in there.
Well, yeah, I'm very interested in what David Pine was saying about the potential possible Ukraine connection. I don't think it was any accident that Charlie Kirk was standing strong against this war, Ukraine-Russia war, and our involvement in it, because he represented America's youth, who has the most to lose if this war continues and Western troops, NATO troops, American troops end up being deployed to Ukraine? It's those exact same 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 22 and 23-year-olds, college students, basically, who are going to end up being drafted into duty or being snookered into joining the military and making it a pound your chest patriotic duty when it really has absolutely no national vital interest to the United States, that piece of real estate known as Ukraine. And so I don't know if it was anyone connected to Ukraine, but Ukraine certainly has one of the most to gain from the elimination of Charlie Kirk, because he was represented the very people who stood to lose the most if that war continues and the United States of America gets involved in it.
Let me show you what Charlie Kirk tweeted on the 9th of September. Islam is the sword that the left is using to slit the throats of America.
He's right.
Yep.
He's right. Tomorrow's 9/11, and we have done everything wrong the last 10 years, especially in the Obama and Biden administrations, to bring Islamists into the country that are untracked, unvetted, and now we have a communist Islamist about to take the mayorship of New York City. Minneapolis is in play. We have Sharia courts in Texas. We have a city in Texas that's being established for Muslims only. It's incredible. That is what's happening, and Charlie's absolutely right. And we better get on with the business of defending this country internally and taking care of this business and eliminating it, or they will be successful.
And the man that's building this 402-acre compound, Islamic compound in Texas, is someone that we were covering and talking about in 2010, and then aggressively starting in 2017. Yasser Qadi, who had at his mosque down the road, Siraj Wahhaj speaking, an unindicted co-conspirator in the bombing of the World Trade Center. And Annie Cyrus and a whole host of us, Usama, Sharam, some guys that retired FBI, we were warning about Yasser. Nobody in the conservative movement wanted to listen to us. No one. And who do we get attacked by the most? John MacArthur's right-hand man. The people in his, quote, ministry, John MacArthur. That's who attacked us for exposing a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching imam because James White came to town, their buddy, to do an interfaith dialogue. And so we didn't get attacked as much by the Muslims as we did by the so-called Christians. Remember that, Annie? And now everybody's upset that Yasser Qadi's building a 402-acre compound in Texas. Well, we could have educated people about Yasser, and we were trying to, but we were too busy being shouted down by so-called Christians. Annie?
Yes. And
they were doxing my home, giving out my home address and where I went to church. People in John MacArthur's ministry. They actually said, oh, it's so easy to find where Brannon lives. And yet they knew that we had the gunmen come into our conference in Sioux Falls. How would they not know that? It was all over the place. They were sending, you know what they were doing? Whoever was behind this, and we think we know who those people were sending mail to my house, mocking us. Islamic mail mocking us. But John MacArthur's own guys from his ministry, grace to you, one of their guys was saying, well, this is where he goes to church. I had to leave that church because we couldn't sit with our back to the door anymore. So what I'm trying to say is when the colonel brings up Yasser Qadi, he's right. But we, the conservatives, who are trying to warn the conservatives about this man who is a literal rock star around the world with the Islamists, we were being trashed by John MacArthur's people. Not just the people in his own ministry, and we have all the screenshots to prove it to this day, but by his supporters. The reason the conservative movement is losing is because most conservatives are only conservative in name. Not in practice, not in lifestyle, not in philosophy, not in ideology, not in worldview. And most Christians are only Christian in moniker. That's it. There's very few of us that really know the truth, that get it. the people on this panel, the people watching this broadcast, we are the minority. Most people do not know anything about the 6 dominant worldviews that rule the world, that includes Islam and postmodernism and communism. They don't. And they wonder why we keep losing. And yet the left, they know all about communism. They have been indoctrinated in it. They've been trained in it. And now they've aligned with Islam for the red-green axis that Charlie was apparently now really picking up on. We lose because our own side, they do circular firing squads. Annie, you want to comment?
Yes, can you hear me, Brannon?
Yep.
Perfect, good. So here's the thing. Going back to a few points Colonel Manus made and you made, tomorrow is September 11th. And I actually wrote a piece that's going to come out tomorrow morning, but I strongly believe that Americans, not us, majority of Americans betrayed America by believing the lies because they were more comfortable. And to this day, that's what's happening. As of this morning, I received an email from actually one of your audience, Brannon, saying that I need you to understand that Mossad and Israel were behind September 11th. And I'm like, why don't you try to understand facts?
Yes.
The level of, yes, lies are comfortable. That is true. Sometimes it's harder to look at the truth and accept the truth, like today. But our country has become more comfortable with buying the lies. Just like what Leo said earlier on, and you all said, they will find somebody, and he's going to be the fall guy, like what happened with President Kennedy, and many other cases we could talk about. It's us. We are the problem. Americans are the problem. There will be a time there. Today there were 2 shootings. One was a high school and one took Charlie Kirk's life. If you look back in last 3-4 weeks, so many shooting. Wait until one by one people come to realize, well, maybe we do need gun controls because too many people are dying of gunshots. Because that's the lie that's more comfortable. It will give them that safety zone that we are the minority today. This panel, your audience, we are the minority in America. The number of people who believe in America it's worth fighting for, is dropping every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to bring the panel and have you each comment on this. This is the document, Unconventional Warfare, that we've talked about so many times over the years. It was a document that was redone by our military, and this one was updated in 2016. Anyone can just type it in and find the PDF, Unconventional Warfare, okay? And as you go through the document, you eventually come to what I showed earlier, which was basically a pyramid showing how you have preparation for revolutionary cadres and of masses for revolution. And one of the things that they have in here is the third from the bottom, assassination. And then at the top, you have political violence, increased political violence, terror, and sabotage. Our own government at one time trained people in understanding these kind of documents. Do you want to comment on this, Colonel? Is this what we're seeing, by the way? Assassinations?
Yeah. This is a training document used by U.S. forces, especially our special operations forces, to train to and understand what it takes to win using unconventional warfare. I mean, the entire Vietnam War eventually became an unconventional war. So we've trained hundreds of thousands, millions of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines in these methodologies. And the techniques and tactics are used to this day for that. So, I mean, it's no secret, obviously. Unfortunately, though, the other side uses the same thing in our country to train to it, too. So everybody's on the same page. It's just we're opposing sides. And that's the way warfare is. Almost all warfare is unconventional, by the way, in my opinion, because it's the worst thing human beings can do to each other. However, having said that, there is a roadmap, and this is it, to use that to generate what we call these days, some people refer to it as a color revolution. The United States used it in Ukraine. That's well documented. It's been admitted to by senior government officials that we used it in Ukraine to change the leadership before Zelensky, to get a less pro-Russian leader in and a more pro-Western, pro-NATO leader in. We've used it. All our CIA has used that. They were part of that team in Ukraine, an extensive part of it. And we've used it all around the world, especially since Vietnam.
Does anyone else want to comment on this document? JJ?
We're being attacked on all sides. This isn't, they're all connected. And it seems as if our own government's using the playbook against us. They perfected it over decades, using against foreign adversaries or perceived foreign adversaries, and now they're using it against us. Look at how they've attacked us on every front, from open borders, DEI, the devalue on our money, societal chaos, cultural norms destroyed, the Islamization of America. Look at what they've done with propaganda and how they've made us all question everything. It's unbelievable what they have accomplished because America was asleep.
Yep.
And now we're slowly waking up. And the biggest question is, will we wake up, or have we woken up in enough time to correct it? And I would love to ask everyone, because I had dinner before I came on. I had an interview and had dinner with my wife, and we were going through about 15 minutes. I said, I'm about to go on another panel. And we were talking about what happens. Like, is this just going to fizzle out? And my only response to my wife is, the road that we're on right now, we're hurtling down like a freight train is out of control. There's no stopping. And we continue down this road, guys. There is no other outcome except a violent kinetic war. I truly, honestly believe that. We can't keep going. If this train doesn't derail, that's where we're headed. I respect you guys and ladies. I would love to hear, do you agree with me on that? Push back on it, have different takes on it. I would love to hear that, because I don't believe right now, if you pressed me and said, I need you to pay, put down a month's salary on the table, how do you correct this? And I think that we are so far gone in our country. There's no other way except the way Thomas Jefferson said, you have a moral obligation to burn it to the ground and start over.
Well, I'm
hoping that's not it.
I actually began just researching and starting to compile notes on a modern day Declaration of Independence about 2 weeks ago, because I began to look at the offenses that our founders had. You know, you had Great Britain. You had them coming in here and taking up residence and homes, throwing you in jail without trials, stealing your property, all the things they were doing, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And after a long train of abuses, not over trivial matters, they said, but after a long train of abuses, and I keep thinking, how much more abuse are we going to take from the federal government? We are all being abused, as JJ just said. They're inflating our currency away. You know, John Maynard Keynes said, who is a Fabian socialist, they want socialism by evolution, not revolution over time, but they're more than happy to work with Marxists that want outright revolution. But he said, by this continuous process of inflation, we can steal the majority of the people's wealth, and not one man in a million will know what we're doing. Well, that's true. Most Americans have no idea why gold is headed tonight to $3,700 an ounce. Silver headed to $42 an ounce. They don't understand inflation because they weren't taught debasement of currency in our schools. They weren't taught how to balance their checkbooks. They weren't taught about the free market system, because the new Gallup poll has, at the highest level now, one of the highest levels, young people who don't want capitalism. They want socialism. So we're at a point where we don't have enough shared common values anymore. Colonel? I need to say goodbye to you. I need to let you jump. We got Trevor Loudon on this document about to weigh in. David, I'll let you jump too, but you two want to make a comment before you go?
Yeah, thank you, Brandon, for having me on tonight and for doing this coverage. Charlie deserves it. Our country deserves it. JJ, unfortunately, is correct. I've been talking about it for years now that this only ends in violence against each other if we don't derail what has been happening since Barack Obama was elected, and especially since Donald Trump came on the scene. And the left has just gone crazy to demonize all of us that love America, as racist Nazis, and we just take it. We just take it. I'm watching a lot of military veteran accounts tonight that I follow, and these are not people that don't pull triggers up close and personal. They are people that pull triggers up close and personal and have vast experience at it. And for the first time, I'm seeing those accounts talk in these terms that the time for talk is at an end. The time for debate, the debate is over. This is going to be a bloody outcome, no matter what. And when you start hearing that from the people that are professional wielders of violence against other human beings, and they're talking about internally in their own country, it just confirms that what JJ said is right. What I've said about it is right. What you've said about it, Brandon, is right. And others is that if we don't derail this and make a really strong course correction, this only ends one way. And it will be very, very ugly, and it will cost a lot of lives, and probably result in the dissolution of the United States of America permanently.
Colonel, his show is each and every day right here at Worldview Tube, 3 p.m. Central. No, 2 p.m. Central. 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern, right here, produced by Worldview Tube. His website's robmanus.com. He's here each and every day. Colonel, thank you for being with us today and tonight on this very solemn day. And tomorrow is going to be another solemn day. And I'm going to need to get you booked for radio tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central if you're available for a few minutes, because we do want to also pay tribute to 9/11. And you were in the building in the Pentagon that day. So let me know if you're available at 1 Central for 15, 20 minutes for you to go off to do your show prep.
My schedule starts at 0600 and it goes into like 8 p.m. So I'll see if we can fit you in, sir.
Ask him, Logan, if he can do 1 p.m. Central. Let me know. Thank you, Colonel. David, you want to make a comment before we let you jump and go to Trevor Loudon? David?
Yeah. In response to what JJ said, I mean, certainly the violence is trending upward. I don't think we're on the verge of civil war. I think there's quite a ways we have to go to get there, but that's where our enemies want us to go. I mean, if you look at there's the fact there's multiple revolutionary domestic terrorist groups in this country that are trying to get us to that road. When they had the Salt Lake City BLM riots, the George Floyd riots, I think it was like May 30th of 2020. I mean, I investigated who the sponsors were. The Revolutionary Communist Party was the principal sponsor of that. That's a group that seeks to overthrow the U.S. government and replace it with a Cuban-style communist regime. We saw the BLM and Antifa terrorists, storm the White House grounds, breach the first barricade. We had, the White House lights turned off, snipers deployed to try to defend the president and the first family as they were hurriedly rushed to the underground emergency situation room, the White House bunker, essentially. But our enemies, especially China, are trying to get us to fight each other. It's long been a communist objective to pit racial groups against each other. Now it's Democrats against Republicans, fueling hatred, censorship, assassination. So we're definitely leading down that road. I don't think we'll get there without war, foreign attack. I think that would absolutely cause that. A massive cyber attack would cause the dissolution of the United States. I'm very confident about that. But it's, we live in a scary time, and, there's so many existential threats we're facing, and things could be so much worse. But today is a very dark day. The loss of Charlie Kirk, one of our greatest America First conservative champions, who really did help President Trump over the top and win all 7 battleground states is a tremendous loss for our movement, for patriots around the country, and my heart goes out to his family. But I just wanted to make a couple closing comments. I had a comment about the shooter's position. I messaged you previously. It was likely about 400 to 500 feet from the building rooftop. I spoke to one of my friends who is a former retired U.S. Navy commander, and he told me that he estimated the shooting angle is no more than 9 degrees. So with that angle, the farther away you get, the lower the angle, the less the angle. So he likely would have had a complete view of the target, Charlie Kirk, including a potential headshot. And then the last comment I wanted to mention is the second suspect. His name was Omar Hejda, reportedly. Again, a Utah resident, I think Springville resident, and a UVU student. He was reportedly transsexual. He's the one who posted that, to expect something really big to happen. He posted that yesterday, and he said that he hoped that Charlie Kirk was evaporated. That shot was made as Charlie Kirk was finishing answering a question about transgender mass shootings. So I don't think that was coincidental, and he clearly had advanced knowledge of the attack. I would assume that he didn't know who the shooter was, but he probably was piped into that network that of the assassin that ended up killing him.
David Pine is dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. David, thank you as always for all your great analysis. I'll need to get you on tomorrow night about Poland and Russia and NATO. Can we do that?
Absolutely. Love to be on.
All right, we'll do that tomorrow night. That was going to be a topic tonight, too. I was going to also talk about Nepal tonight, folks, but the time was dedicated appropriately to this topic. That seems to be a communist regime over there. And yet the young people want liberty and freedom. And a lot of them look to have been shot point blank by the police. We'll get into that tomorrow night, because here we go. A lot of young people around the world want freedom. And maybe, again, that's what was so threatening to the deep state, the globalist, whoever this group is that was behind this. It seems clearly orchestrated at a professional high level of ability, that Charlie was leading a group of young people that understand the importance of freedom. Joining me now, and Annie and JJ, if you guys want to stay, we'd love to have you. Do you guys want to stay to hear what Trevor has to say?
I would love to.
Sure,
Yes.
I'd love to.
Trevor Loudon has been a friend of this broadcast for years and in studio many times. Trevor's an expert on many things, communism, of course, one of the most. And Trevor and I have discussed this grid we've been showing you in the document, Unconventional Warfare, that calls for increased political violence, terror, sabotage, assassinations is third from the bottom. I called you tonight, or today, Trevor, and said I want to talk to you about that document you and I have talked about, because sadly, you and I, and then Andy and I, we can go back in our archive and actually show you descriptions going back to 2018 and even longer, where we said the trajectory was going to be for political assassinations and killing well-known conservative spokespeople. You and I have talked about this openly, and here we are. I hate to say that, but here we are. We warned this day would come, did we not, Trevor?
Yeah, we did, Brannon. Unfortunately, it's come true. I think we both hoped and prayed that it wouldn't, but
Right.
It was pretty obvious that this was where the left was going. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the sophistication of this, killing, this assassination, the guy to get in and get out undetected, what are your thoughts? Are you thinking this is even foreign? Are you thinking it's just highly? Is it could be the government? Donald Trump isn't in charge of this federal government in totality. Seems to be a shadow government. The power elite is what some presidents called it. Do you think this is happening in the shadows of the power government, the power elite, and the shadow government, or foreign? What do you think? Is this the red-green axis, the Marxist, the Islamist? What are your thoughts tonight? When you hear this, when you see this, when you think about this, who do you think is behind it, and why Charlie, Trevor?
Well, I think the most likely culprits here are, look, there are two main subversive elements in the country now. The Chinese Islamic networks who, Students for Justice in Palestine, Black Lives Matter, all of those left-wing groups which are heavily communist, heavily anti-America, heavily anti-Trump, and they come from the Chinese camp. But there's also a heavy Russian element that is trying to work the right. We saw the recent killing the transgender guy up in Minneapolis. He was deeply had a lot of pro-Russian stuff going on. The guy who shot up the Walmart in El Paso a while back, he was a pro-Russian Duganist type of character. The young man who shot up the supermarket in Buffalo, New York, was a pro-Russian character as well. So we've got the Russians working the right and the Chinese and the Islamists working the left to a large degree. So it could be either I'm suspecting this will be a pro-Russian type of operation. I may be wrong. It could be any one of a number of things, but I think it's going to be in that line of action. The idea is, I think they want to plunge this country into chaos before the election year, during the election year, and we're going to see more of this kind of stuff.
Do you believe that our government at some level is behind it as well?
I don't think so, not in this particular instance. Look, there are certainly elements in the government that are deep state elements. And we've got to understand the deep state is a Russian-Chinese operation. When we talk about the deep state, that's Russia and China working through our government. So, I don't know. I think this is more likely one of the many networks that are operating in this country that are sponsored by foreign operations, not necessarily directly sponsored, but plugged into the Russian and Chinese propaganda networks. Like the Islamics, not every Islamist who goes on a rampage is part of Al-Qaeda, but they go to ISIS websites and Al-Qaeda websites. They can be sometimes lone wolf actors or small groups who are not directly connected to foreign operations, but they are inspired and encouraged by what they read on the internet, what they, their circle of friends, etc. So there are many such groups around the country now, and we've had the left training, and the John Brown gun clubs have been training for a long time, arming the left. We saw the Antifa types who attacked the ICE detention center in Texas. We've seen several political type killings in the last few months, and I think they're going to up the ante and going after an amazing figure like Charlie Kirk. I think that he was very deliberately chosen to cause the maximum amount of damage.
Wasn't it you and I reporting during wasn't that the Obama administration that you and I were in the air reporting that some in our government were warning that these anarchists, leftists, communists, whatever you want to call them, were training in Venezuela and we're training on sniping and Molotov cocktails and other things. Do you remember us reporting on that?
Yeah, I do. And I remember, for instance, Brandon Howse, who's a conservative reporter from Texas, talking about when he was a young anarchist. He went down to Venezuela and they tried to get him. He refused. They tried to get him to set up a terrorist network operating out of a terrorist network trying to operate out of the Louisiana swamps, to attack facilities in the local area. So yes, look. There's the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. There's the Revolutionary Communist Party and many other communist groups who can't wait for violence to break out. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization organized both the George Floyd riots and tried to get LA burning down, until Trump shut them down with the National Guard. There's all of those elements, plus the Islamic elements, plus the Russians and the Chinese and the Cubans and the Hamas and Hezbollah, who have been infiltrating this country for many years, but particularly in the surge across the southern border under Biden. So all of these networks are poised, ready to go. And we've been warning about this for some time. But I think now, with the international scene heating up, and Russia attacking Poland now, this is heating up in preparation for international action to tie the US up, to create division in this country so that we're paralyzed when things happen on the wider stage. And I just want to make a point. One of the last callers made this point, which nobody's talking about. You've got all these bots out there now calling for war. We're going to, this is the right wing has got to rise up and go to war. Well, this is all Russian propaganda. This is Duginist. They've been trying to get us in a civil war for decades. This is what they're trying to do, because if we get in a civil war here, Russia and China can do what it darn well likes on the world stage, and then they just come in and mop up what's left. All those people who think we can fight a civil war in America and fight it out and we've got all the guns, blah, 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 they're not factoring Russia and China in. Russia and China want to annihilate us, and we're going to do the job for them. Are we crazy? We cannot be talking civil war. The Russians and our enemies are amping this up as much as possible, and we cannot buy into that crap.
Here's from our conference we did in 2017. 2017, we brought in a former FBI agent. We brought in Chris Govitz. That's Dave Govitz's son. He went undercover. Yep, went undercover in Mother and Brotherhood and came out with 12,000 documents. 2017, we live streamed this out of our studio. And one of the things we discussed was our domestic terrorists getting training in Venezuela. Well, we know there were. Even our own government was acknowledging this in press reports that they were over there getting training. How do we know, and I guess we don't, but what's going on with Venezuela? President Trump's got troops over there, 4,000 Marines on ships. We're bombing drug cartels, et cetera, out of Venezuela. How do we not throw into this the president of Venezuela, Maduro, that maybe he's got kill teams here and they just killed one of the president's close friends that helped him get elected to a second term? I mean, he shouldn't be off the table, should he?
No, absolutely not. And he's raising, seriously, trying to raise a 4 million army right now to defend Venezuela, but really to take part in an attack on the United States. So this is serious. Look, Maduro emptied his jails and his mental hospitals and allowed Tren de Agua, I can never say it, Tren de Agua to come to the United States. That was a war. That was what he was doing, that to bring us, and he hates us. I was talking to a guy the other day who had a friend who was a top Venezuelan military official under Chavez. He said Chavez was not a left-wing populist. He was a full-on Marxist-Leninist communist, and his number one goal was to bring down the United States, to wage war conventionally and unconventionally against the United States. And Maduro, his successor, is exactly the same way.
So, again, would you be shocked if all of a sudden you started seeing some of the most well-known prominent conservatives who happen to also be closely aligned with President Trump start meeting a demise? Because if you're declaring war on them, they're declaring war on us. Again, we can't take Venezuela off the table. And one of the ways I guess you could go after the leader of a country is to go after his friends, right?
Yeah, the idea is to create chaos. So they want to provoke us to attack the left. That gives the left a moral justification for defending themselves. Their idea is to create civil war in America. That's their idea. That means that Russia and China can clean us up. So that's their way to destroy us. So all of those, and absolutely they're going to go after President Trump's friends, advisors, people in his circle, 100%. Because they want to amp up the tensions in the country so far. They want to get everybody in a state of fear. They want to get people to go rogue and start maybe, people, start blowing up mosques or start, attacking Democratic Party headquarters or something. They will foster any violence they can from the right, and they will foster any violence they can from the left. Freedom Road Socialist Organization, they've sent, I think, 5-6 delegations to Venezuela in the last couple of years, high-level meetings, and these are the people who did the George Floyd riots and rioted all over the country, and did the LA riots. Look, it's not hard to identify who these people are. This is why I'm saying the FBI needs to stop worrying about people going to PTA meetings and really, really, really go focus on these radical groups, the John Brown gun clubs, the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, the Palestine Youth Movement, Students for Justice in Palestine, all of these very violence-prone groups, and, of course, try and ferret out the massive number of foreign military operatives running around our soil right now, working on marijuana farms in Oklahoma and places like that.
Let's bring in JJ and Annie in our closing minutes here. JJ, you any questions for Trevor Loudon on this topic, what we've been talking about?
Trevor, where do you see, if we don't get through this, if we don't get off this train that's going down this road, how do we navigate a world without violent revolution?
Well, if we go into civil war and violent revolution in this country, we're done. Where the Russians and the Chinese are just going to take us down. So we must use the laws that are on our books and get serious about going after the people, the foreign agents in this country. I've written in my book, Security Risk Senators, I wrote the plan for dealing with the revolutionaries, how we can defuse the foreign infiltration, etc. And it's a little bit involved to go into right now. But, look, the FBI has been arresting Iranian operatives in this country, but for 20 years they've totally ignored and not been allowed to even investigate the Maoist groups, the communist groups, the Palestinian groups. They don't even look at them. They don't know much about them. That's got to change really, really quickly. These people have got to be brought to justice. We've got to close a whole bunch of embassies in this country. We can't do as Trump's been talking about, bring in 600,000 Chinese students. We've got to expel the ones that are here, that are already here. We've got to clean out this foreign infiltration, because all of this is foreign directed. This is not American Marxism. This is all directed by China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, and some other countries. And we got to start saying that real quick. We got to start.
But that means they're in our country using these groups and funding these groups on the ground in our country.
Absolutely, but we got to understand real quick. This is not directed from here. This is not an American problem. This is this is foreign groups sponsoring radicals in this country to turn us against ourselves, to start a civil war so they can come and mop up the survivors.
I want to get a response from Annie, but Logan, can you cue up where I had Bill Federer on today? Bill, by the way, just spent a week with Charlie Kirk in South Korea. They were going over there to try to prop up the people because the communists are taking over South Korea.
Yes, they are.
And Bill Federer shared with us today, live on the air, the Bible verse that Charlie Kirk had just texted him yesterday. I want to play that before we go off the air tonight. Annie, you want to come into this conversation real quick?
Absolutely. Let me very briefly address what you said, JJ, before Trevor joined us. I don't think we're at a point where we need to burn it down and rebuild it.
No,
what I do think is I partially or 70% agree with what Trevor said, but I will also add as Americans, I strongly believe we need to stop siding with the side. We need to become Americans. It doesn't matter which representative or official belongs to which party. We need to hold everybody to the same standard. Anybody who makes a mistake, anybody who steps wrong, we need to hold them accountable. It's time to end the party line and join as Americans. As Brannon said earlier, we need to remember our American values, not conservative, not Republican, not independent, left, liberal, American values. Then we be able to get back to where we need to be. As long as, I agree with Trevor, the foreign forces have created the division. Yes, left has contributed to the gap plenty, but this division was created by them. And the more we feed into the division, the more chance they have to come in and take advantage of it. I'm not saying shake hands with those who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death today. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying we need to open our eyes, look at anybody and everybody who's making mistakes. I personally go ahead, Trevor.
Well, I just say, look, if we could remove the Chinese, the Iranian, Venezuelan influence, and go after the communist groups, we wouldn't have a problem between Democrats and Republicans. We wouldn't have a problem between the soft left and the moderate right. This is completely deliberately created by foreign actors and their American agents.
But wait a minute, let me just stop you right there. You don't mean we leave the Ilhan Omars and the Rashida Tlaibs, the Red Green Axis.
They are
Marxists.
the agents.
They are the agents.
Yeah,
so what you're saying
are
is
the agents.
Absolutely, they are the agents.
So what you're saying is if our country would go back to prosecuting these people, removing them from office, and stop all the money sloshing in here from our enemy states that are against us, they wouldn't have the money, the funding, and the propaganda. And of course, that would mean you're going to have to do something with the media, right? I mean, we believe in the First Amendment, but the media is pushing for a revolution. You can't. That used to be considered treason.
Brannon,
you couldn't do that. That was subversive.
But Brannon, that should be people. Stop watching them.
Well,
the government doesn't need to do anything with the media. That's up to the American people.
Right, but we have laws in this country
watching.
traditionally against subversive behavior. And yet, of course, we know that Frank Church, the U.S. Senator from Idaho, Frank Church, back in the 70s, was pushing to make it so the FBI couldn't track and follow and monitor the communists unless they knew they were up to something they shouldn't be doing. And you couldn't know that they were up to something unless you were monitoring them, right? Right. So we have neutered our intelligence community from monitoring the communists in America. Am I true? Am I speaking the truth tonight about Frank Church or not, Trevor?
100%. Look, he was part of the Council for a Livable World, a Soviet operation. And he basically gutted both the abilities of the CIA and the FBI to go after communists. And that was in the 70s. And guess where we are now? If he hadn't done what he did, we would not be in this revolutionary situation.
And who was it that put Joe Biden into office? That same group that you taught me, the Council for a Livable World, goes to a 29-year-old Joe Biden, says, we'll run you for U.S. Senate. Here's $200,000, which was a lot of money then in a small state like Delaware. They put him in the U.S. Senate, and he pushed for every treaty in the world to neuter America and let the arms race be won by Russia, who's now under their 5th and 6th generation of warfare technology, advanced China all over us, and we're sitting here neutered, and we haven't done any nuclear testing for multiple decades. That happened through the Council for a Livable World, which Frank Church was a part of, who neutered the CIA, who neutered the FBI. That's who helped put Biden into office with the mother and father of Al Gore, Bill Clinton's vice president.
100% right, Brannon. This is my point. We've got a moderate left, we've got a moderate right, and a moderate left in this country who both for a long time basically accepted traditional American values. But the Russians have amped up the fascist right. The Chinese and the Muslims have amped up the radical left, and they have stirred them up. Like here's an example. The Charlottesville disaster. you know, back in 2017 when they had big riots in Charlottesville, and it was the alt-right versus the communists on the street battling it out. Well, those communists were pro-Russian. The alt-right people were also pro-Russian. You had two pro-Russian factions. You had the Klan, you know, types with David Duke and all those on one side, and you had the pro-Russian communists from the Party of Socialism, Liberation, and Workers' World Party on the other side, battling it out on the streets of Charlottesville. And who gets the blame for it? Republicans and President Trump. You know, there was a Russian operation. We got to understand we wouldn't be in this situation if we had kept the CIA at full alert and allowed the FBI to go after foreign agents operating in this country instead of going after people going to PTA meetings and complaining about the school curriculums.
But the problem, Trevor, is that, and I agree with all that, but the problem is Americans don't understand that traditionally in this country, it was illegal to be involved in subversive behavior and activities. Yeah. And now we allow the mainstream media with their license, FCC license, which President Trump is saying we should look at taking their license. And I'm sure most people go, oh, what about free speech? He is a fascist. You see? No. Traditionally in America, you could have never gotten away with broadcasting what they're broadcasting that is calling for revolution, calling for violence against elected officials, that inciting people to rebellion and revolution. You could not stay on the air with your FCC license. Yeah. True or false?
Well, look, a while back they shut down RT and people complained, Russia Today, and people complained, oh, it's an abrogation of free speech. Free speech does not cover foreign intelligence operations working on American soil. It protects the rights of Americans to free speech. I wouldn't pull their licenses. I'd prosecute their journalists who were going to China on a regular basis, taking free trips to China, are active subversives. I would be prosecuting them for subversion, for look, there's several statutes on the book. Foreign Agents Registration Act. There's many things that could be used to shut down these operations.
And let's talk about Muslim Brotherhood.
The people involved.
Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas.
Yeah.
Why are we letting them sit here and raise money? We had the Holy Land Foundation trial. It was the largest federal investigation into terrorist fundraising in American history, and it got shut down by Barack Hussein Obama and never started up again. Right, Annie?
Yeah, exactly. And now the issue's been raised again. Ted Cruz wants to get the Muslim Brotherhood designated as a terrorist organization, but the problem he's got is that President Trump wants to do deals with Qatar, and Qatar is the main sponsor of the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's right.
Now.
That's right.
I love you, Trevor.
That's the problem. Sorry?
And that she said she loves you,
Trevor.
And that's the red-green axis we're talking about.
Yeah, it is.
The red being the Marxists,
yes,
the green being the Islamists for any new people.
Brannon, can I just correct something that was mentioned on the broadcast, because I know you like to be accurate. So the second suspect that was released was not the Omar guy we had the tweet of.
Okay.
The guy who was arrested not arrested, but picked up, interrogated and released is a 25-year-old guy named Zakaria Ahmad Qureshi. I know he has.
Is that a Muslim name?
No, that is a Muslim on top of Muslim on top of Muslim. Quraysh is actually the tribe of Muhammad himself from Makkah.
So he's not Irish, as Trevor just alluded, tongue in cheek.
No, not at all. But that just wanted to say, because they did release the information that he is released and he's no longer a suspect, but that is who he was. For the record, and as of right now, again, there is information that they're looking for the suspect, but no information on what they're looking for is released. But back to what Trevor was saying, yes, exactly. We have the red-green axis, but this is what I was referring to when I was answering JJ. I'm not saying President Trump is part of red-green axis. I don't even think President Trump knows what red-green is. But he is contributing to it. knowingly, not knowingly, with bad advice, good advice. But in last 9 months, except myself and maybe you, Brannon, and a few people, everybody kept covering up the whole diplomacy and 3D chess. And it's been 9 months of enabling Qatar, one of the biggest names behind September 11, not just through one individual, not just through the mastermind, but through so much more. We've been covering up and funding him.
Yep.
Our current administration has been funding Qatar.
Yep.
Oh,
So,
and by the way, we did also remove the THS, the new quote-unquote government of Syria, from terrorist list as well when they shook our hands.
Let me just mention
Yeah.
real quick, because I'm going to wrap, but before too many people fall asleep. Folks, we've not run one commercial tonight. I'm going to show you, by the way, before we go and have these guys all comment on this, and we're going to wrap. Revolutionary abolitionist movement, 10 points of action. I want to tell you what their 10 points are. Trevor and I have been trying to warn folks for years on this. These are old PowerPoints I pull up out of our library. So don't go away, we're going to wrap. But folks, we haven't stopped for any commercials tonight. I don't think it's appropriate. But I will say it is appropriate for you to help us keep going by our foundation. So I'm not going to push product tonight, but I am going to say, if you appreciate, we've been on the air today, 5 hours, now going on 7.5 hours live today. And if you appreciate what we're doing and pushing out for free, we need your support. Easy enough, right? Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Worldviewfoundation.com. People magazine is reporting the person of interest in Charlie Kirk killing described as wearing tactical gear, all black clothing, and aviator glasses. University officials say the gunman fired from university's Losee Center, L-O-S-E-E, about 200 yards away. Dispatch audio described him in all black tactical gear. You want to comment on any of this, JJ, that you've been hearing before we go through these 10 points real quick and wrap, JJ?
I'm curious to see when I wake up tomorrow what we're going to learn, if we're going to learn anything. So that's really going to tell me the tone of America. How I want to see how this plays out this weekend and see if this bails, meaning that America just gets so desensitized, or will this be a time when historians look back and say, this September, the killing of the young woman in Charlotte and then the assassination of Charlie Kirk, this was the beginning of the revolution of taking our country back. It's to be seen, but I'm praying and hoping that is what this senseless death both senseless deaths will allow to have happen in America.
Oh, we can't forget about the woman that was hacked to death out walking her dog in Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with race.
No, it never does.
No, nothing.
Revolutionary abolitionist movement. Trevor and I have gone on this for years. This is what they want. Number one, liberation will be won by any means necessary. That includes killing people that speak truth. Two, we will destroy the state, police, military, corporations, and all those who run the American plantation. Well, they've done a good job destroying our state government and our police and military with LGBTQ, woke ideology, liberalism, cultural Marxism. Three, we will live with dignity in a world without prisons. Four, systems of punishment will be abolished. There will be no law to enforce, no money to protect. That's just, yeah, right. It's called anarchy. That's called anarchy. Five, revolutionary justice will be determined by those who are oppressed. So that means those who are so-called oppressed will decide what is justice, which means killing conservatives, killing Christians, killing anyone you disagree with. They will decide and determine what is justice. Six, there will be no government. No person or group will have power over another. That's a lie. Show me one communist country where there's no government having power over another. This is all a lie. Seven, communities will make decisions about how they live and will make sure that everyone has what they need to live a dignified life. Impossible. That's socialism. It doesn't work. No one can always be the same. You can't do it. It doesn't work. But stupid people believe stupid things. 8, land is not property. It's alive, communal, and must be protected. So goodbye, private property. But of course, the communists, they always live in big palaces with big gates and lots of security and even private jets when they need them, but not for everybody else. Look in Cuba. Alongside international comrades, we will destroy all borders for the free movement of people everywhere. Notice again, international comrades. See, they're working with our enemies inside our country to destroy us. And then 10, militant networks will defend our revolutionary communities. Liberation begins where America dies. Trevor, comment in closing?
Yeah, well, that's, I think the key thing was the international comrades. None of these groups would have any power or any influence if they weren't sponsored by hostile foreign powers. If we are not looking at the hostile foreign powers behind the movements operating here, we are going to fail.
So tonight, give our audience a word of encouragement and an action point, please.
Well, I think JJ said it well. I think this will be an inflection point. I think this will encourage many people. I think it will be looked upon as a turning point in history right now. And if it's used properly, I think the word of encouragement is we need to get very active. We need to encourage President Trump for the good things he's doing and start calling them out hardcore for being soft on our enemies. I think we can do that. I'm talking China, Russia, Iran, our enemies, Qatar. When he starts using America's power, America's economic power against our enemies, we will defeat these problems pretty easily. So we gotta stay strong. We gotta be faithful and courageous, and encourage our leader when he's doing what's right, and rebuke him for what he's doing wrong.
TrevorLoudon.com. TrevorLoudon.com. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
JJ, closing comment.
Oh, what a horrible day. What a horrible, horrible day. My son's 14 years old. We watched Charlie Kirk videos. We've learned a lot. What a sad day. And I think the saddest thing as a dad, I know he's in heaven and he's living peace and beauty and love that we can't even fathom. But that man can't raise his children. And what a pain in the heart that is, even for a dad to think I can't raise my son. Look what they took from him. Unbelievable.
Yeah, look what they took from his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that his wife has to see that image in her head over and over, that his children will one day come across these images. There's no getting around that.
No, it's not. And the left is celebrating it. That just shows you that they are absolute demons from Satan. I believe that in the depth of my soul.
I do. Annie?
I agree, JJ. I think I'm still processing what happened, but I'm gonna talk to my fellow Americans. For 24 years, many of you listened and tolerated lies that numbed you to be programmed to think big cities come with terror and diversity comes with disagreement. Don't let what happened today, playing with words, let today's sad and tragic event be a turning point for your heart. Seek the truth. Don't believe what you hear just because your guy said it. Seek the truth, look at the facts, learn to investigate for yourself, because otherwise, 10 years from today, you're going to owe an apology to Charlie Kirk's kids for not getting justice for him by believing whatever social media and mainstream and alternative media threw at you. Stay sharp, stay in prayer, and remember, America is worth fighting for, and that's what Charlie Kirk did for America.
Charlie texted this verse yesterday to Bill Federer. He shared it with us on the air live today. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 9, for a great and effective door has opened to me, and there are many adversaries. There are many adversaries, folks. And the Bible says that Satan is like a roaring lion walking about seeking whom he may devour. Galatians chapter 4, verse 16 says that I become your enemy because I tell you the truth. At the end of the day, why did they kill Charlie Kirk? Because he spoke the truth. And what is the truth? Postmodernism says there is no such thing as truth. Truth and reality are created by man, not by God. It's all pragmatic. It's all utilitarianism. It's up to whatever gives us the best outcome, the best opportunity. Moral relativism, situational ethics. But Jesus said in John chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth. Not one of many truths, the truth. Not your truth, my truth. Let me share with you my truth. No. There's only the truth. Jesus said he was the truth. He said that thy word is true. He who sent me is true. Truth is that which is consistent with the character and nature of God. Truth is that which is right, which is just. One day, every one of us will be judged not for salvation based on how much money we gave to a church or Christian organization or how much good works we did, our church attendance. Not there's anything wrong with any of those things in and of themselves. But one day we'll be judged by the truth. What is the reflection and character and nature of God? That's it. And guess what? I don't measure up. I can't do enough good to equal the character and nature of God or overcome the sin that I was even conceived in. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But thankfully, he is the truth, and he laid down his life as a ransom for sinners. In fact, the Bible says that he who knew no sin became sin for us, as it were, that we might become the righteousness of God. Charlie Kirk openly professed faith in Christ over and over. I have no doubt where Charlie is tonight based on his personal proclamation and the fact that he stood for it so boldly. Did that make him a Christian? No, because you see, your fruit isn't what saves you, but your fruit certainly shows evidence of it. Charlie showed evidence of salvation in his daily life and the way he talked and lived. And so Charlie didn't earn his salvation. He knew he couldn't. It's a free gift, lest any man should boast. He was proclaiming the truth, that which is consistent with the character and nature of God. And it's the truth by which we'll all be judged. And thankfully, for those of us who have placed our faith and trust in Christ, that's it. Your name is in the Lamb's Book of Life, never to be blotted out. You cannot be plucked from his hand. That's justification, instant salvation by simply placing your faith and trust in Christ. That's it. His death, his burial, his resurrection. Like the thief on the cross. Christ said, surely today you'll be with me in paradise. It was just faith. He didn't have time to give it to a church, to go to a church, to join a church. There had been no churches formed yet. We hadn't even had the beginning of the church age yet. It was faith alone. Believe in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved. That's it. That's justification. And then sanctification. That's where we have ongoing faithfulness and obedience. Working out our Christian life, defending what is true. It doesn't have anything to do with salvation. There's justification, and then there's sanctification. The Bible does teach something in several places about what's called the Bema seat. You know what happens at the Bema seat? That's where people who are Christians get rewards and crowns. And you know what else is determined according to the scriptures? Our level of involvement in the kingdom of God in the future. What we're doing now is really building a resume for what we'll be doing for him in eternity. Charlie Kirk ran the race. He built a very good resume in 31 years. Are you building a resume? None of us are perfect, but are you striving for ongoing faithfulness and obedience, sanctification? But first, have you been justified? All you got to do is place your faith and trust in Christ. I cannot save myself. I cannot do enough good. I just simply place my faith and trust in the death, burial, resurrection of Christ, that he is the spotless Lamb of God whose my sins have been covered by his blood. That's it. That's justification. Then sanctification, studying our Bible and dwell by the Holy Spirit, growing in our faith, doing all we can to proclaim truth, not just proclaiming the gospel, but the Great Commission is the gospel, and then teaching people how to live according to the Bible. That's sanctification. And then when you're doing that, you're building that resume, and you know that your future responsibilities in the kingdom of God will be based on that. The Bible's very clear about this. Sadly, many churches don't teach what I just did, justification and then sanctification. They marry the two together and they create a works-based system. And you can never truly know that you persevere enough. Did you do enough good works? What a horrible way to live. Most churches today don't do what I just did tonight. Teach justification and sanctification, which is what the Bible teaches. They merge them. And they create man-centered ways for salvation that appeals to the flesh, appeals to the pride, as though we thus have something to do with our own salvation when we have nothing to do. All we can do is just simply believe, accept. And then we look forward to that third phase, justification, sanctification, and then glorification. So tonight, as we conclude, a very sad day. One reason that many of us tonight can end a very sad day with some hope is because we believe, based on his profession of faith and his actions, that Charlie Kirk tonight is in glory. Not because of works, but because of his faith. And today, America and the world had the chance to see how quickly one can step from this world into the next. Charlie had no likely reason to believe that today would be the last day on earth. He had no indication, really, I would think, to think that he sat down in that chair to never get up again. But he did. He sat in that chair to never get up again. He stepped right into glory. It's only because I'm a Christian that I can sit here at this news desk and do these things day in and day out and not become so demoralized and depressed. Do I like reporting what I report? No, a lot of times I don't. But I do understand why there's evil in the world, which is one of the biggest questions the world asks. Why is there so much evil in the world? If there's a loving God, why does he allow so much evil? This wasn't his plan. He placed man in a sinless, perfect garden and he walked with them. But he only had one rule: don't eat of that fruit. Man disobeyed and fell. And he could have walked away and said, that's it. But the Lord God took on the form of man, making himself lower than the angels, and gave himself the only ransom that could satisfy the wrath of God, his own death and shed blood. So yeah, there's evil in the world. It's because of original sin, which, by the way, your humanist and your communist all deny that. They think man's just a simple product of his environment. Create the right environment, man will do what's good. Really? How's that worked out in communist countries? So for me tonight, as we conclude a 7.5-hour day of broadcasting and talking about this incredible tragedy, the reason tonight I can have some peace in my heart as I go to bed tonight is because there's every indication Charlie Kirk is in glory. And we do not grieve as those who have no hope. The Bible's clear about that. We do not grieve as those who have no hope. Those of us who know the Lord will see Charlie again. I grieve for his family. I grieve for his wife. I grieve for his children. I grieve for his parents. But at least I can go to sleep tonight knowing where Charlie is. If your life ends tomorrow, where will you be? The Bible's very clear. It's appointed unto every man to die once and then face the judgment. But the Bible also says those who place their faith and trust in Christ will pass from judgment into life because the wrath of God has been satisfied through the shed blood of Christ. That's the truth. And at the end of the day, this is a truth war. It's a battle over truth. And nothing makes liberals, Marxists, and atheists, Satanists more angry than when you speak truth and you speak the name of Christ. That makes them so angry. But at the end of the day, while we want to be politically involved, while we want to understand the times and rightly respond, this isn't a political battle. Ephesians 6 makes that clear. It's a spiritual battle. And real spiritual battle, not shouting at demons, not railing at demons or shouting at Satan. 1 Corinthians makes it very clear. Real spiritual warfare is setting people free from lies. That's what Charlie was doing. He was setting young people free from the lies of the cultural Marxist, LGBTQ agenda, the lies of atheism, and many other isms of our day, taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, destroying the arguments, not individuals. Noticed how Charlie would engage with those young people and engage with people that were so hateful, but he kept a smile on his face because he understood that the goal here is not the destruction of individuals, but the destruction of the arguments raised up against the principles of the Lord, destroying the ideas and the philosophies, the lies, not the individual, and winning them over. The battle for truth, the battle for the mind. We need more people to rise up and speak truth, to engage in this battle for the hearts and minds of not just young people, but people of all ages. And not just in America, but all over the world. Believe it or not, we have a pretty good sized audience around the world, and we even see them coming in and watching in places like China and on VPNs out of Iran and other very dark places in the world. Another reason why these Marxists, these globalists want to shut down outlets like ours, because they know that we're serious. We've got a 35-year track record, by the way, at this network to prove our seriousness. And they don't like the fact that we're broadcasting the truth. We're broadcasting out seed every day, spreading seed. I don't know what kind of soil it always falls on. I don't know what it always produces. But I do know at times we get back emails of people who were atheists, who are agnostics, who are communists. You say, I would listen to your broadcast, I would watch your broadcast, and now I'm a Christian. Some of our biggest critics and haters have become some of our biggest supporters. Do you know that? We have young people that would follow us when they were teenagers, coming to our Worldview weekends, who are now in their 30s and going on their 40s, that follow us because seed was planted. The truth was distributed. The truth was broadcast because it's a battle for the mind and the heart. So tonight, think about that. If you're someone that doesn't know the Lord, your life ended like that, as Charlie's did today, where would you go? Where would you spend eternity? It's time to start asking questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. Start seeking. And the Bible's very clear. If you seek, you will find. So tonight, remember this. I become your enemy simply because I tell you the truth. More and more of us are going to become the enemy of many adversaries because we simply speak the truth. No matter how lovingly we speak it, they're still going to hate us. But the Lord himself said, if they hated me, they're surely going to hate you as well, because we represent him. And yet the Bible also says, all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will what? Face persecution. Romans 8:18 says, the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed in us. Charlie Kirk tonight is in the presence of glory. What's your final destination? Thank you for watching our broadcast tonight and for the many hours that many of you have been with us. We appreciate it. Pray for Charlie Kirk's wife, pray for his children, pray for his family. And may God save America. Take care.
Our country was founded on common law because the Declaration only refers to God 4 times in the Constitution. It doesn't refer to God at all. And it only articulates the structure of government.
So first of all, remember that we were a collection of states and colonies, and you need to read the state constitutions before anything else. 13 out of 13 required a declaration of faith. In almost every single one of the original state constitutions, they had, I profess Lord and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Secondly, 55 out of 56 of the original signers of the Declaration were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. You asked about common law. Well, let's go to 3 principles of common law. Presumption of innocence, due process, and jury of your peers. All 3 are biblical principles. So, and all wrapped into the ultimate biblical principle that you shall not favor justice if you are rich or poor, which is in Leviticus 19, which is the idea of blind justice, which is incorporated also in the New Testament ideal, neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, you are all one in Jesus Christ, so you get the idea of human equality. These are all biblical ideas, but more importantly than that, they say that God was only mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's a big deal. John Adams famously said the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people. It was wholly inadequate for the people of any other. The body politic of America was so Christian that our form and structure of government was built for the people that believed in Christ our Lord. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population. With your life. Wow. To go give and to produce and to risk and to then go sow into other people. That is a biblical idea that has made the world a profoundly better place.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you.